Welcome to the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. We don't shy away and keep secrets here. We empower you with education, telling you the truth about all things aesthetic medicine while encouraging you to be the best version of yourself. It's time to look great and feel good doing it. This is your host, mom, speaker, and board-certified physician, Dr. Judith Borger.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 105 of the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. This episode is all about human design in the real world, how to amplify your strengths and release limiting beliefs. Our guest today is the one and only Dr. Stacy Cisneros, who is a practicing wound care physician and a transformational coach for professionals ready to evolve beyond burnout and into effortless alignment. Dr. Cisneros uses human design and infinity healing, and with those modalities as well as her own magic, she helps clients dissolve deep energetic blocks, access intuitive clarity, and create success that feels as good as it looks. Dr. Stacy's work bridges science, spirituality, and energetic mastery to guide leaders to operate from flow, vitality, and authentic power. Now, I have one disclaimer for this episode, and this is that I have a puppy and everybody's home today. So unfortunately, you're going to hear my little puppy Sugar yapping a couple times in the background. I apologize, and this is like working mom life, making it all happen at once and recording this episode with a yapping puppy. Anyway, I'm so excited to talk to Dr. Stacy about human design and infinity healings today. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Stacy Cisneros. Well, Dr. Stacy, I'm so excited that you're here, especially as you're such an expert in human design, like I said in my intro. And we did a prior episode, which for those of you who haven't listened to it, it's episode 60 on human design. And it's one of our most listened to episodes ever. So I think human design is just something people are fascinated with. For those of us or those of the listeners that haven't had a chance to listen to that prior episode, will you just tell us what human design is?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Dr. Judith, for having me on. I really appreciate this, and I'm really excited to share all about journeys with human design and what it can do. So, human design, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, is actually a synthesis of Western astrology, the I Ching, the chakra system, and Kabbalah. And what all those systems have in common is that they're archetypes. They speak of the archetypes regarding the human experience. So when you put all those together, it gives you a really specific way of seeing your life and seeing how you're interfacing with the world around you and how people are receiving you. So it's a really insightful modality that helps bring about awareness so that you can really optimize your life the way you love it.
I had a human design rating done, and not by you, but I would love to, because I feel like everybody pulls different things out. It's like you can have your chart read multiple times and people focus on different things. And I was just really blown away, first of all, by how many dimensions of my being it talked about, and then really how accurate it felt.
So one of the main parts of human design that teaches you about your energy is actually how to take care of yourself and how to really listen to your inner authority. And what I mean by that is, everybody is built a little bit differently. We have enough insight to run our lives to a point. What happened in my case is that I actually burned out really early in my career, and it actually made me stop and pause and ask myself what I was doing wrong. I really believe that medicine was the career for me, and I was really confused because I didn't understand why I didn't have the amount of energy that my colleagues did. I was just as healthy, I was just as motivated, and it just didn't make sense to me. And then when I found human design, I actually ran my chart, and my chart told me I was a projector, which is a non-energy type of being. There's 5 different types. There's manifestor, manifesting generator, generator, projector, and reflector. And each of these different types reflect how we best serve in the world, our purpose, and how we can best move in the world and give our gifts in the most optimal way possible. And so when I saw that I was a projector, I understood that I was running my life like a generator or a manifesting generator. And these beings have a lot of energy and they're here to respond to the world around us, and they're the doers of the world. And most of our society is kind of built around that idea that you do and then you get, right? Whereas the non-energy beings like the reflector, the projector, and the manifester, say non-sacral beings, they don't have consistent workforce energy. We're actually built to initiate, like the manifester, we're built to guide, like the projector, and we're built to be like a reflection of our life, like a consulter, like the reflector. And so I understood that I had to really take a step back from pushing and from forcing and to step into my beingness and really fall back into the things that I most really enjoyed in myself. And that actually brought out my energy. So I was able to build my clinical practice around my energy needs. And in that way, it's sustainable. Otherwise, if I had kept going the way I did, I would probably not be in medicine. I'd probably be very sick. And so this was a really huge life-changing idea to receive. And so I'm really thankful for it. And this is what I share with my clients, my coaching clients. They also get a human design read and coaching based on their energy type. And so I understand like the mechanics of what makes their body serve them and be excited for life, and what really drains them and their inner challenges. So it's been a really insightful tool.
So is that how you first got exposed to human design, your own burnout? And then tell me about what led you to get trained, what led you to be an expert in it. I find it also very fascinating.
What really got me was the first was the awareness that I wasn't really doing my life with regard to my own energetic needs. That was the first thing. But the second thing that really got me was the chart, because it's based in astrology, it actually predicted the time that my life would stop, and I stopped with burnout. At the same time, my father passed away. I was having other like health challenges, I was having financial challenges. So everything actually came to a hard stop when I was about 28. And the astrologers called this the Saturn return. Human design also takes this into account, and it tells you the exact theme that you would be experiencing. And nobody gave me this reading. This was just me researching my own chart. And I was just flabbergasted that it could actually predict when my life would take that huge change. And so I thought to myself, well, this is really reflecting a lot of truth back to me. And I have to look into it because there's something there. Like this is telling me about my life. And that's what really led me down this road. So I encountered about 2010, 2011 or so, but I didn't really seriously start studying it until maybe about 2012, 2013. And I got certified in like 2016, 2017. And so around there is when I really started taking it very seriously, because I felt like this was very life-changing for me. It held the framework for improving the way I see myself and thus improving the way I interact with other people. It helped me improve my relationships. It helped me understand that my interactions with people were really not personal. They were more energetic than they were personally against me or whatnot. And so this modality really gave me a lot of insight as to how to live my best life. And so this is what I help others do.
I love that. So how do you like concretely then use human design when you coach somebody? Do you like as you coach have their chart pulled up and like help explain their challenges through their human design, or how does that work?
Most of my clients are professionals, either physicians, lawyers, small business owners, engineers. And what we do is they initially have a curiosity about their chart. And so what we do is we run their chart and we look at the different challenges that they're experiencing. So if it's monetary or if it's relational or if it's just that they feel stuckness, we look at the chart and then we also talk about like their purpose. Like what does the chart tell me about how they are being received in the world and what they're here to give to everybody and how that like those things actually feel like a natural expression. Like if they don't feel like a natural expression, that's probably not the purpose. And so we look at that as a framework. And so everything else is reflected and filtered through that idea that this is how I am and this is how I'm being, and everything else needs to support that. So how is that being filtered in people's lives? So for example, I look at the incarnation cross on the chart and that gives me the purpose. For example, my incarnation cross is called Right Angle Cross of the Maya. And what these beings do is we take big ideas, mysteries of life, and we articulate them and that we convey them to the rest of the people to make them more understandable, more digestible. And actually, it doesn't really matter what kind of profession you're in because this can apply to any profession. So if I'm talking about my clinic, they do wound care. So what I do is I take big complex ideas and formulas and protocols and I break them down practically and apply them for my patients. So that's the funneling. If I'm talking about my coaching business, yeah, I take these big esoteric ideas like human design and I explain it to people in a way that they can be used practically in their lives. So this is like my purpose being expressed in many different venues. So in that sense, we discuss what these what these themes are in people's lives. And in the chart, you could also see where there might be some conundrums where one energy might be more private and another energy might be more expressive or charismatic. And then we look at how to resolve this and how to give equal times to each of these energies so that the person feels balanced and that they can not judge themselves for being one way and not the other. So a lot of the coaching actually comes from being aware of who you are and almost even giving permission to be who you are because now you see the strengths and not necessarily the deficits.
I love that. And what I hear kind of is also this idea of like self-acceptance. And we always, at least in my coaching, I think a lot of what I really when somebody starts coaching a lot of times and Western society, like you said, especially in medicine, right? It's drive, drive, drive. It's, I don't know when you did residency, but I did residency right before duty hours. So it was like hours and hours and hours in the hospital and 36-hour calls and all the stuff. And like you said, those of us who have unlimited energy, it's definitely rewarded by society, the hustle culture, the work harder, the especially in medicine. And so I love the idea of self-acceptance and also designing a life that really plays to your strengths.
Absolutely. And this was the one modality that I actually wondered to myself, if I could just see my strengths like laid out like on a piece of paper, that would be awesome because I can't always see my gifts. I can't always see my faults. And so this is a tool to help you with that. So it's really fascinating.
One of the things that I learned, and it's been a while since I had my human design reading, but what really was fascinating for me was this idea too of, and if I butcher this, please correct me, was this idea that even though I'm like, I think I'm a manifesting generator, but I have an undefined sacral. And that was actually the thing that explained the most to me. And maybe you can explain our listeners to what an undefined sacral really means. The fact that I feel like energetic ebbs and flows and
Mhm.
that I need inspiration, despite being a person that can do so much work and run away with a project. And I've made a lot of things happen, that there was just always these like periods where I just felt so devoid of any inspiration. And now one of the things that I've really shifted in my life was to like just wait for inspiration, wait for the universe to tell me what to do, wait for the energy to come.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, manifesting generators, they all have a defined sacral. I'm interested
Well,
to
maybe
see
we
like
can
what your
look at
chart
my
looks like.
chart
Yeah, maybe we could
at
look
some
at your
point.
chart.
But
Yeah.
tell people what an undefined sacral is because I don't have, or an open sacral? What is it? See,
Yeah,
now I'm messing
so
this up. I shouldn't have said anything.
no, it's perfect. So we have 9 energy centers. So they're based on the 7 chakra centers of traditional Hinduism. And so these 9 energy centers mostly correspond to, the different parts of us that experience different energies. So we have from the top, we have the head center, and this corresponds to the crown, where we get our questions and inspirations from the world around us and people. Then we have the ajna, and that makes all these different, it answers all the questions, right? It forms them into ideas and concepts. And then they get relayed into the throat center. The throat center is about manifestation into action. It's about expression. It's about teaching. And then we have the G center, which is the diamond in the middle, and that is part of the heart chakra. And just to the right of it, you have a will center, which is the tiny little triangle. It acts kind of like a heart muscle, so it works to rest. And those two together make the heart chakra. So you have a center for personal will, personal discipline, and you also have that G center, which is about love, self-direction, and identity. And then moving downward, we have in the traditional system, we have the solar plexus. And in human design, that center has split into the splenic center and the emotional solar plexus. And these are awareness centers. So, if you have these defined, then you can understand like how you best interpret the signals in the world around you to make decisions. Going down, you have the sacral area. So the sacral system is kind of like the sacral chakra. And in human design, it's a little bit different. It's about workforce energy. It's about energy needed to sustain life, to work, to get resources. Sexual energy is stored there, and just the energy just to respond to a need. And then at the end, at the very bottom, we have the root center, which is like the root chakra. In human design, that's about inspiration and taking in ideas from the world around us. So inspiration, ambitions, starting new endeavors, things like that. So we get inspiration from the world around us. So head and root centers can function as pressure centers, especially if they're not colored in. And everybody has the same amount of centers in your chart, and everybody has the same amount of connections. The only things that are different are where they are colored in and where they're not. So if they're colored in,
Listen,
they're
I was totally wrong. My sacral is colored in. You were totally right. I just pulled it up.
awesome. Oh yeah, that looks beautiful. Yeah, so you have your sacral colored in, and that means you have regular workforce energy, and then you also have it connected to your solar plexus. And everywhere where you have it colored in is where you have defined energy. It's consistent. You can rely on it. That's basically like where your personality comes through consistently. Everywhere where it's open, so yours is like open or not colored in, you can call it open if there's no gates colored in on it. You could call it undefined if it's white and it has maybe a gate or two colored in. This is where you take in information from the world around you, and then you kind of sample it, you amplify it, and then you release it. Some people kind of hold on to it and think it's theirs, but when it's actually somebody else's. But actually, this is where most people are intuitive. So I see like the head center and yours, and then the root center are complete, or like not colored in. They're undefined. And so that means that you're taking in a lot of inspiration, like a lot of it, and it's inconsistent, and that's
That's
okay.
what I was talking about. I was just,
Yes.
see, guys, I knew I was going to screw this up. I should have just sent her my chart beforehand. Why didn't I even think about this?
Yeah, so that means that whenever the inspiration comes in, if your sacral says, let's do this, do it. Like that's the time to do it because that's when you have the energy. Otherwise, you can be inspired, you can write the ideas down, but if your sacral says like this isn't the time, then you got to set it aside. And that's the way you guys optimize your workforce energy because you can still be a generator or a manifesting generator and burn out. And it's
It
usually
says here
because
emotional generator. What does that mean?
yeah, because it's connected to the emotional solar plexus, which
Mm.
means over time, like if you have a big decision to make, you have to check in with that sacral over the course of time. So over the course of your emotional wave. So like if somebody invited you to be on somebody's television show, like it's a big deal. So you're like, initially, let's say you're excited about it, and your sacral says, uh-huh. I would wait out that emotional kind of high because over time that might change. After you've gotten over the high of being asked or whatever, then at the end of all that, then you would say, okay, I felt mostly yes. So the answer would be yes. But if it's like mostly no, then probably you shouldn't, just because sometimes that feeling is representative of what will happen, what you will feel. So if it's mainly negative, it might be actually negative if you decide to do it anyway. So that's how we use the decision making strategy in a chart.
I love that. Thank you so much. I love how you explained how you would use like a chart in like decision making. You also said that you use infinity healings. Will you tell our listeners what infinity healings really are?
Yeah, so this is another one of my very favorite modalities. I also found it during the time where I had burned out. And I understood that I knew I had to like redo my life, redo the structure of my business, re-look at the way I'm being in the world. However, because we all grow up with certain conditioning from our authority figures, our parents, our teachers, our society, it's kind of hard to really redo the way we think. So I'm talking about like emotional patterns that maybe were it's hard to let go, different needs we needed that were unmet going forward in our lives. So I started really researching like how could I change my mind now that I have the awareness that human design brings, like how can I really shift mentally and emotionally so that I can just get on and do the thing I need to do without so much pushing and resistance. And so I started looking at things like affirmations, binaural beats, things that help with the subconscious. And I found that a lot of these things like really didn't help me change as fast as I wanted to. And so I came across Infinity Healing when I was listening to a podcast way back about over 10 years ago. And at the time, I was having a lot of financial issues because I didn't have my income. I had a lot of student debt. And so when I listened to it, I initially felt like electricity shoot through my body. And so I was like, whoa, this is wild. I need to like look into this. Soon after I had listened to that particular recording on playback, I started noticing that I felt a little bit more comfortable looking at my money situation. Like I could write my check, I could balance my checkbook, whereas before I was kind of ignoring it. And so I had a private session where we use this modality to facilitate me. And then within 2 weeks, I came into $10,000, like out of nowhere. And I'm like, whoa. And this is over the course of a couple of years. And so by that time, I had already started building my clinic. And then the last time I got another private session, within 2 or 3 weeks, we get a call in my clinic saying that a physician in the neighboring city had become incapacitated and couldn't see his patients, and could we take patients in the clinic? And I was like, yeah. And part of it is kind of like when you shift your subconscious beliefs, it's interesting because not only does it help you, it kind of it kind of feels like magic where it seems like everybody else is on the same page. And I think that's why I like this modality so much, is because like, when you feel like, yeah, I need to shift this, and you do, But not only do you shift it, like the rest of the universe also seems to shift. So it's very magical in that sense because you can't figure out how it is that the other person that has no idea that you shifted comes and reacts to whatever it is you're working on. And so it's really nice. So it's a really powerful modality. And then I promised myself that I would learn what they do when they do infinity healing. And when they offered a practitioner course, I took it. And then I also took a trainer course so I can train other people how to do this. And I absolutely love it. In my work, I use infinity healing to help shift your limiting beliefs, like on one sessions. And also, I have audios on my website to shift the different beliefs present in the body regarding the archetypes, like we talked about in human design. Like, for instance, like self love. We have different ways we express and feel self love. So, on the one end of the archetype, we have full self love, full unconditional love for the self. And then on the other end of the spectrum is like self loathing. And so my audios also address this. So we take the self loathing and try to shift that over to the self love side. And that's part of what the work I do when I combine the two, human design and infinity healing.
I love that. And I do heart healing, which a lot of my listeners know. And it does really work on, I mean, it's obviously not the same thing, but I think what the modalities have in common is that they are working in the subconscious. And we now know that actually, like the vast majority of all of your beliefs, of all of your thoughts, of all of the ways you show up in the world actually originate in the subconscious. That really what we're aware of. So first of all, by coaching, I think we make people aware of a lot of things that most of us pre-coaching, going through the world on autopilot, aren't even aware of. So number one, with coaching, we kind of make people aware of their conscious beliefs. But then I just love the subconscious modalities because science has now proven that the majority, like vast majority of all of our thoughts are in the subconscious. So any modality, I think, that can help shift our subconscious thought is just so powerful. And so I always love learning about other people that do the subconscious work. And you had shared with me, and I want to just make sure to let all of our listeners know that on your website, you do have free infinity healings that people can access, correct? So we're going to link everything in the show notes where people can access Dr. Stacy's website, but will you just tell us what it is too, in case somebody wants to know right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to my website, which is infinitelevelhealings.com, there's an opt-in box and you can type in your name and email, and I'll send you a free Infinity Healing audio that optimizes you for your particular human design energy. And I think you'll enjoy it. And feel free to listen to that when you have free time. I don't recommend you to listen to it while you're busy operating heavy machinery, driving, or intensive caretaking. These are subconscious audios. Sometimes they can be a little bit dizzying or disorienting. So please be mindful of that.
Yeah, and when I do subconscious work with people, I always do recommend that they're somewhere in a private space where they also feel safe. So, like for example, it's full disclaimer, I have a puppy that you've heard yapping, and I have kids home because it's school vacation. So this might not be the time for me to do an infinity level healing. And so it's the same. You can most easily stay in your subconscious. First of all, you have to feel safe and you have to feel as relaxed as you can. Again, with practice, it's so much easier to access that level, and it's so much easier to stay in that level.
Absolutely. It's always important to be in a safe position or be in a safe spot and to really relax that conscious mind because that's what's actually going to be the gateway to go from beta to alpha to even maybe theta waves when you're relaxing and doing this meditation. Certainly.
Well, thank you so much for sharing everything you have about human design and Infinity Healings.
Infinity Healing, yes.
Where can people find you? Because if you're anything like me, I'm like going to be like, Dr. Stacy, I need a private session to figure out more about my human design, because clearly I was utterly like, I understood the themes, but there's so much to a chart. I mean, if you guys ever get your chart done, it is like an astrology chart. I mean, you really like, unless you're an expert, it so helps to have a guide, or maybe even more than one guide, because people pick out different parts of your chart. It's like seeing a picture, it's like seeing a puzzle, and everybody can solve different parts. What are some of the offerings that you have for people that may be really curious about learning more about their human design? And really, like we talked about, not just, I mean, yes, we're all curious, we all want to know, but I think it gets most helpful when you can use it to optimize your own life and help kind of add more ease to your life and help solve your challenges.
Yeah, so on my website, I have a link to a chart generator. And so you can get your free chart and you can get a free report to start you off. I offer different workshops throughout the year regarding different aspects of the chart and things you might find useful. So the next one is about understanding where, like we spoke about, where you are intuitive and where you're not, what's yours, what's not, and that's always really important. I also offer one-on-one sessions. I offer coaching packages, and that's also linked on my website. And you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm at the handle Infinite Level Healings. And you can, see my own podcast. I have my own podcast, which will link in the description. And so thank you so much for having me come on and share my story and all the resources available to everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was, as always, a fascinating conversation. And I know that so many people are interested in human design. And I think also, like, whenever there is such a great interest, it's not just because it's a fad, right? It's something that has now endured for, I mean, it's a very like old kind of technique from what I understand, or an old modality. And I think the reason it's endured is because of its accuracy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Dr. Stacy, for being here, and I will see you all next time.
Thank you for listening to the Aesthetic Doctor podcast with Dr. Judith Borger. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. Follow Dr. Borger on Instagram at Dr. Borger, and find more online and ways to work with Dr. Borger at www.theaestheticdoctor.com. Until next time, be well.